I just set it up for, it's starting now. It's
Okay,
recording.
yeah, the red dot is on. Okay,
Yeah.
recording and
Um,
transcription
I,
started.
I would give it a couple of minutes.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm
I'll
gonna go.
Okay.
I want to make sure that nobody has logged into the other room somehow.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Um, because I'm not. I want to just double check the links. I'll
Okay,
be
that's
back.
a good idea. Okay. Hello, Pat. We're going to get started in just a few minutes.
Hi, I don't see anything else. But I'm gonna take another look.
Okay.
But you should probably go ahead and get started, and you might have some people joining late if I can figure out if if there is another login.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
all right. Thank you. Okay. Hello, Pat. This is Dr. James Rivera. This is part 2 of from concept to contract. It's about writing a book proposal. So what I am going to do is share my PowerPoint here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hold on a minute. I will need to pull up. Do you see the PowerPoint right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. All right. So this is part 2 from concept to contract, writing a book proposal. And I'm Dr. James Rivera. If you have any questions, you can interrupt me if you want, or you can type them in the chat window and I'll get to them as I go.
Okay, thank you.
I'll at least get to them at the end. All right. And I don't know if you were here last time. Some of the opening slides will be kind of repetitive for those who were not.
No, I wasn't at the last one.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm glad this is new material for you. I'm going to talk about me personally and then my publishing history, and then I'll get into the material. So I got married when I was 19, started working as an electrician. I started college in 1987 while I was working full-time and raising a family. I earned an Associate of Arts from Valencia. It was Valencia Community College then. It's Valencia College now. And a BA from Rollins College, in Orlando and Winter Park. I started publishing poems in small literary journals around 1989. And then in the 90s, I graduated from Rollins with my BA in 96. I started doing a lot of freelance writing. So between 1996 and 1999, I earned about $3,000 to $5,000 a year freelance writing. And then in 1999, I figured I had to go one of two directions. I had to get a master electrician license and start my own electrical business or start graduate school. So I chose grad school. I graduated with my PhD from Drew University in 2008. All right, come on. I turned my dissertation into my first book, Blake and Kierkegaard, Creation and Anxiety, which was published by Continuum in 2010. That's now that was taken over by Bloomsbury. It's currently in over 1,600 libraries worldwide and has been reviewed a number of times. Since then, I've published a number of other books, most recently David Bowie and Romanticism with Palgrave Macmillan, and Women in Rock, Women in Romanticism with Routledge, both in 2022. Writing for college and beyond, that's my only self-published book with Lulu Press. It's a first-year writing textbook. And then Reading as Democracy in Crisis with Lexington Books in 2019. That's an imprint of Rowman and Littlefield. And then my music and literature publishing started with these two books, Rock and Romanticism, Blake, Wordsworth, and Rock from Dylan to U2, Lexington in 2018. And then Rock and Romanticism, Post-Punk, Goth, and Metal as Dark Romanticisms, Palgrave Macmillan in 2018. So my total publishing history to date, 7 books, including 1 monograph, 1 textbook, 5 anthologies as an editor, 3 digital humanities projects, about 20 articles in online magazines and other new media outlets, 8 articles or book chapters, not including my own anthology, 33 book reviews or annotations, 4 exhibits in mixed media. I contributed poetry. About 30 poems, 2 creative nonfiction works, 3 short stories. I've done editing and peer reviewing for several academic presses. I've done some ghostwriting work for commercial publishers, and I've given 4 invited talks and 34 conference papers. The previous session was about researching a book. So this slide and the next slide is going to kind of summarize the entire session. And that actually leads well into writing a book proposal. Your book, whatever you're going to write, starts above all else with an idea of your own. If you're thinking about writing a book, it's because you have an idea. You should have something to say. And you very likely develop this idea in response to reading other books, articles, essays, and other works. So you want to start your research for your book with the books that are closest to you, to your idea in terms of content. Sorry. Some of this stuff's getting in the way. Do you still see the PowerPoint? So after identifying the most important books that are close to your idea, find the most recent books that fit, that are close. In short, how to research a book. You have an idea. You read the books about that topic already available, preferably all within the last 10 years. And then think about what you really have to contribute. This is like a key step for writing a book proposal. What is going to set your book apart from the other books that are out there? That's one of the main questions that publishers are going to ask you. Okay, why should they publish your book? What does it add? What gaps does it fill? And as you select those books that are about, roughly your area or topic, you want to identify the publishers. Who is publishing books about that topic? And that's where you want to go first with your book proposal. Okay. So your research for your book is the groundwork for your book proposal. So a book proposal is a written document describing the content of your book. Most publishers have areas on their website devoted to authors, including sections devoted to potential authors. Like it'll say publish with us, or it'll have an author section or something like that. And we'll hop over to a couple of websites if I can make sure screen sharing is working correctly. So, you should have identified publishers who are publishing in your area of interest, a topic. So you want to identify 3 to 5 publishers that are publishing books that are in your area. You want to visit the area devoted to authors and find the instructions for a book proposal. And after that, you have to follow 3 key steps when you're writing your proposal. Read the instructions, follow the instructions, and write well. That's it. A book proposal, I mean, you want to think about it almost as like a student paper. Okay, you're being given prompts that the publishers want to see. They want you to respond to those prompts about your book, and they need you to write clearly and directly about the content of your book. They want to understand what your book is about. That's what each of those prompts are for. They want to know who you are. And you want to write very clearly and specifically and directly about each prompt, okay? And how well your proposal is written will influence how much they trust you to write a good book as well. So you want to write well. So in some ways, it's like a student paper, okay? Like a grad school paper. Read the instructions, follow them, and write well, right? Now, the most common instructions. I went over to the Oxford University Press website because they have pretty straightforward instructions. It's just a list. So I navigated to the author area in the footer of their main page. I'm going to go through these points and see if I can get these links to display. After that, I migrated to the book publishing process area. I navigated to it. And then this is important. The book publishing process, that's where you're going to find the instructions for a proposal. But, and I'm specifically talking about academic presses here. Academic presses publish books in many different areas, all right? They don't, legitimate academic press doesn't publish books in all areas, okay? They won't publish books in all areas of the humanities. You know, not everyone publishes about music. Not everyone publishes about political science. These, the legitimate academic presses tend to specialize somewhat. They still cover numerous areas, even like within the humanities or the sciences, but they don't cover everything. So you need to find the acquisitions editors list at the press website, because the acquisitions editors are assigned to different areas of publishing. They have specializations in different areas. They know the field. They tend to be very young, like they're right out of grad school. Some of them look like they're 12, but they're very educated. They have an education in these different areas, like say 18th century literature or microbiology or something like that. And so they know the field, and they're dedicated to soliciting books and acquiring books for the press in those fields. So you want to find the specific acquisition editor for your area and address your cover letter to him or her. Okay, when you know you're going to write a proposal, they'll send that along usually with a cover letter. And you want to keep in mind that there may be several sub areas within your field. So if you look up an area that looks like you, and you go to that, and there's like 6 editors under what you think is your area, you need to read the little biographical information about each one. Sorry about that, hold on. To make sure you get the specific editor for what your book is about, okay? You want to carefully select the editor to whom you send your proposal based on their area of expertise. So take the time to kind of go through the website and find the correct editor. Okay. So from this point, you need to start crafting your proposal. The publisher's website will show you what is required for a typical book proposal, but you want to keep in mind that different areas may have somewhat different structures for book proposals. So you may have a different book proposal form depending on the area that you're submitting to, all right? The Oxford University Press website in particular asks for specific information about yourself, your book, and your book's market. Everything they ask for falls into those 3 categories. Now I'm going to try to go to the OUP website here. And it probably stopped sharing the screen now. I can close the settings here. I'm going to see if I can share the website. Stop sharing. I'm going to share Windows. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So you should see this website here, Oxford Academic. Do you see that? Okay. So I'm going to accept all the cookies. I'm going to go to the main Oxford page here. What we publish, that's very important. You want to make sure you actually selected the right press. Authoring, that would be become an Oxford author, and they send you first to what we publish. The book publishing program is where you get the proposal, okay? And that also goes through, come on. There we go. It also goes through the steps: your proposal, review, contract, writing and content preparation, submission, production, publication, and beyond. There's actually a lot of sub-steps within there. So when you write your proposal, you send it to the acquisitions editor. The acquisitions editor makes an initial judgment about the proposal, like this looks good or this does not. This fits our catalog or this does not. And then they get back with you. if you're lucky. Okay, so I was very generously rejected by OUP for this book I'm working on now, and the acquisitions editor, loved the idea of the book, but it's an edited anthology, and she said they just don't make money with those. And I looked at their catalog, and I should have known. I looked at their catalog. All the books in the area of music and literature that they have published, they're all monographs or single author books. So they haven't published an anthology in this area since the late 1980s, like 1987. So if I had thought of that, I probably wouldn't have bothered submitting. But it was also really nice to get such a generous rejection letter from an OUP editor. Um, and the review process doesn't stop with the acquisitions editor. If the acquisitions editor thinks we might want to contract this, they will send it usually to 2 peer reviewers, other experts in the field outside of the press, who will be given up to 3 months usually to send feedback. The feedback will basically be publish or don't publish. If they recommend it for publication, they might have suggestions, usually chapter by chapter for content or for the book, for further research you should do, things like that. And I've come to very highly value the peer review process. I very seldom get bad feedback. And I pay attention to it, and I incorporate it into my revision of the proposal or into my writing of the book if they don't require me to revise the proposal. Okay. So if 2 peer reviewers say, yeah, you should publish this, that's when they issue you a contract. The contract is not a guarantee that your book will be published. It just means they will publish it if it is up to their quality standards, if it meets their expectations. So you have to write the book at that point and submit it to them. And it is not true it goes straight from submission to production. Usually there's another peer review process in here. They will send the complete manuscript again out to 2 peer reviewers. And again, that's going to take about 3 months. If the 2 peer reviewers agree on publication, they'll give you feedback for each chapter. If one says publish with these revisions and one says no, don't publish, they have to send it to a third person who may have 6 weeks to 3 months to review it. So you see, if you're publishing a book, even an academic article for that, the process can be pretty long and drawn out. Okay, if the third reader says publish it, you'll get suggestions for revisions. And then you go back to this step, writing and content preparation, and you revise your book, and then you submit it again. Okay. Usually it does not go out for another round of peer reviews. Okay. If they make recommendations for content editing, the editors at the press will just make sure that's been done. If they're so worried about it that they want to send it out for peer review again, they probably would not publish your book to begin with. Okay. And then it goes into production. Now, the step between submission and production is copy editing. It's final formatting for publication. So this whole time you're doing this in Word, and the publisher writing and content preparation. Let's see. I'm not going to click on the link. The publisher will have guidelines for how to prepare your manuscript in a Word document, and you'll send it to them. And then they will format your document in some kind of final form for publication. It depends on the press, how you get that. They might just send you a straight up PDF file that has the final formatting of the text. And that's where you do copy editing. Okay. You don't make major changes in content because that means they would have to, reset the pagination for the book. But at that point, you're just doing copy editing. Make sure there's no typos, things like that. So you do minor changes at the copy editing stage. Palgrave Macmillan and Rutledge had like this nightmare of an online program that is basically the PDF, but it was in a web format, and you could make edits within the web format, but it was very, of the PDF, it was very unwieldy. and you could add comments and things like that. I don't like it. I think it made it worse rather than made it better. And there's another thing I got to say. At this stage of the publication, you really need to pay attention to those copy editors. I've had some horrifyingly bad copy editors. They're like independent contractors working out in India, and some of them have second language problems, like they have problems using articles, an and the. It's a typical second language problem. So I have had to correct their corrections and include a footnote or a note or a link to the grammar rules explaining why it was originally right. Okay. So from this point forward, this was my last two experiences publishing. My goal is to submit a perfectly edited book. And that way I know if they changed anything, it's probably wrong. Okay. So you have to protect yourself. All right. You might, if you're not confident that you can come very close to perfectly copy editing your book, you probably want to farm it out to a copy editor near you, like someone local who's a professional. Okay. After the copy editing is done, those final changes, that's when it goes into production. And then a few weeks after that, you'll get a few copies of your book, and then they will be shipping it out, as it's purchased by libraries and to journals who will review it. Most academic books are, for the most part, published in libraries. Depending on the field, like in my field, the humanities book, usually 300 to 500 libraries around the world. So my first book was in 1600. I felt like a bestseller. I made like $300 from that. So we'll talk about the contract and how much you actually make from this next time. But and then it goes out. If you have a book that's really designed for sitting on the shelf in a library, like most academic books, you want it to be reviewed by Choice Magazine. Choice Magazine is a review, book review, really short reviews, like 100 words. The book review publication that librarians use. So if you get a good review in Choice, you're very likely to be picked up by a bunch of libraries. Okay. All right. So I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint now. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions? Any questions? Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the PowerPoint. Okay, so this is how far we've pursued this, and we went to the OUP website. All right, so this, like if I have this in bold here, that's a specific part of the OUP list for the proposal. All right. So the first thing it asks for in these exact words is your name and contact information. All right. Then your ORCID ID. And you want to go to this link. Okay. You want to follow this. ORCID is like a research self-identifiers. It provides unique personal identifiers for publishing scholars. You will get a unique ID number that's specific to you. And then all of your professional information, all your publications, your university affiliations, your education, and all that will be stored on that site. And you may be able, if I recall, you may be able to upload copies of your publications there. I'm not sure. But it's the main point of reference for publishers who seek to vet you as one of their possible authors. Okay. OUP specifically asks for your ORCID ID. So just, whatever you do when this is done, if you don't have it, go set it up. Okay. And the URL here is info.orcid.org/researchers/ okay. Go there and set up an ID, tomorrow or something. Okay. Some publishers, OUP does not do this because they're relying on the ORCID information, but they might require a curriculum vitae or CV. Your version, you should know your CV needs to be different for different purposes. A CV set up for publishing should include in brief form your list of degrees and your list of academic employment. And then after that, your publishing history in longer, more detailed form. You don't need a lot of details about your teaching if you're trying to get published. Okay. If you're trying to get a teaching job at a college or university, that's a version of your CV where you list all your teaching experience. Okay. But your academic employment's enough for that. You know, maybe if you teach in the area in which you're writing, you might indicate that you teach courses in this area and have been for 6 years or whatever. Okay. But don't worry about documenting specific teaching assignments or coursework otherwise. Your degrees, your academic employment, and then a detailed overview of your publishing history. All right. The next thing they want is a proposed book title, and you should keep in mind that that's proposed. The publisher will have to approve your title, or they may suggest a different one. And then a detailed synopsis. All right. Purpose, approach, aims, scope, main arguments, methodology, and impact on your field. What is your book about? How do you approach your field? What's the purpose of your book? What does it cover? What are your main points? How do you approach your topic? And how is it going to impact your field? Okay. Relation to existing literature in the subject area, distinguishing what makes your work unique. That's exactly what I said you had to do in the researching your book area section. Okay. You need to know the field and know how your book is going to contribute to the conversation in that field. Okay. This is where you actually sell your book. You know, you have to be able to say what you have to say fills these gaps in the existing scholarship in the subject. All right. So, and this is where you want to mention some of those other books, because some of these proposals will ask you specifically for titles and authors in books that are close to what you're doing. So you can mention, you should be able to mention these other books that are in your area that are publishing, you know, in an area similar to your book, explain what they do, and then explain how your book is different. Okay, and that if you do that, that'll raise the confidence of your possible publisher in the fact that you've done the reading and you know the market. Okay, and then there's an outline. Every book proposal, you have a chapter list with main subheadings and a description of the chapter. Sometimes they want this to be kind of long. I would say at least 250 words, but some publishers ask for a 500-word summary of each chapter. Okay. So at least one draft chapter should accompany all monograph proposals, and it's preferred for all proposals. All right. So they're almost always going to want a writing sample. Okay. So you should keep that in mind before you go, you seek out a publisher. If you're publishing an anthology, if you have, or if it's a co-authored book, if there's like 2 or more authors for your book, or if you're publishing an edited anthology where you're the editor and the person who came up with the idea for the book and all the chapters are written by other people, they're going to want names and affiliations for the author of each chapter. If your book, for OUP, I don't see this requirement often, but OUP says if your book is based on a PhD dissertation, include the full original thesis. They want to see your dissertation, all right? The assumption is you're not just turning your dissertation in as your book, okay? If you have a dissertation you want to turn into a book, every publisher is going to assume you're going to revise that into a publishable book. Okay, a dissertation and a book are 2 different things, a published academic book, okay? So OUP specifically, if you're revising your PhD thesis into a book, they want you to send the whole thesis, the examiner reports, meaning, you know, like the dissertation committee. OUP is British, so they have slightly different, you know, names for these, but your dissertation committee reports if they're available. And then an overview of your plan changes and updates. All right. So my dissertation had 6 chapters. I took the 3rd chapter and made it the 1st chapter, and I deleted a chapter and I added a new chapter. So I would be able to say this is how I'm editing the book. This is how I'm changing it. Okay. Projected final word count, including footnotes and endnotes and bibliography, if that should be applicable. Some publishers have a really hard and fast number. Okay, so I'm working on an edited anthology. I'm co-editing a book called Romanticism and Heavy Metal with Dr. Julian Knox from the University of Georgia System. And we've submitted a proposal to Liverpool University Press, and they said 91,000 words. And Julian thinks, oh, we can fudge that. And I'm thinking, he's never published a book before. And I'm like, no. When a publisher gives you a word count, it might be 91,000, it might be 120,000. You want to take that ceiling seriously, because that's the ceiling at which, the length at which the cost of the book becomes prohibitive. Okay, that's where it's too expensive. It becomes too expensive for them to publish, or they'll have to charge too much for it. Now, if it's a dictionary or an encyclopedia, everyone expects those to be 600 or 800 pages. Okay, that's different. But if they say for an anthology or a monograph, 120,000 words, and you submit 150,000, they're going to tell you to cut it most of the time. Okay. Some publishers have some wiggle room built into their word count. Okay. Liverpool University Press was serious as a heart attack about 91,000 words. I was right. I knew it. They said, so I said, look, 4,000 word chapters. With this many chapters, the introduction, 4,000 words. Okay, that's the best we can do. And those are very short. That's a very short chapter for an academic book. It's usually more like 6,000 words. And they said, we really like this, but we want the chapters to be longer, and you'll just have to cut some. Okay. So they wanted the chapters to be 6,000 words, but they didn't want to give us any more room in the book. So we're having to cut chapters. We're going to have to turn down some contributors. So we're letting everyone turn in their chapters. We're going to review them. And where some people kind of bailed on us already, that helps. They're self-selecting out. But we still have too many chapters for the word count they gave us. All right. So you need to be serious about your word count. And there's a minimum too. They won't tell you, but if they say 91,000, you probably don't want to go below about 60 or 70. Because then it's more like a booklet. Okay. You want to be, within about 80% of their page limit, 70 or 80% of their word count. Okay. Now, if you're going to include illustrations, figures, tables, appendices, or online only material, you are the one. If this is an academic book, you have to get permissions. You have to pay for the rights to do that. You have to pay. Okay. And you are responsible. You're going to sign your soul away for being responsible for any copyright violations. Okay. The publisher will not accept any liability for copyrighted material. Okay. But my experience has been different publishers have different rules, and the rules change from year to year. So I've published 4 books on music and literature. The first 2 with 2 different publishers, strict word counts, no more than 3 lines per song in the entire book. Okay, so if I'm doing an anthology like rock and romanticism, post-punk, goth, and metal as dark romanticisms, everyone's writing about a different band in different chapters and comparing them to different 18th, 19th century literary figures. That's fine. I just have to tell them, don't quote more than 3 words, okay? But David Bowie and romanticism, everyone is writing about David Bowie, okay? So I had to basically argue with this guy. Hey, you already have all these other quotes. I only want to quote 3 lines from this one song in my whole chapter. Can you let me have those quotes? Okay. It's like a zero-sum game. If he's quoting 3 lines, I can't. Okay. But that tends to change. And like the cover image on the Palgrave Macmillan book, they said we can't see the artist's face. Otherwise, you have to get a modeling contract signed by the artist. And you have to pay them for that. Okay. Not them, you. Okay. It's not their problem. It's your problem. But the Lexington books didn't say that. So the cover of Rock and Romanticism, Blake Wordsworth and Rock from Dylan to U2, you can clearly see the lead guitarist and singer for Fall Out Boy on the cover. Clear as day. Beautiful picture. But Palgrave Macmillan said no faces unless you have a modeling contract. So the figure, the guitarist, is backlit with red and blue lights, and because he's backlit, he's completely in black. You can't even see his clothes. It's a pretty cool cover. Okay. So you have to start looking at those details and think about what costs might be associated with your book if you have copyrighted material in it. And that's part of your proposal. Okay. I mean, figures, tables, appendices, you're generating those. You have to worry about it. Illustrations, if you're generating them, okay. Online only material, if it's yours on your website, okay. Otherwise, you really got to start paying attention to permissions. And most publishers will have a permission form. Okay. So I'm working on this other book right now on David Bowie. The tentative title is David Bowie Is, with a period between each word. With Sam Gladden, he's Dean of Humanities at the University of New Orleans. Great guy, heart of gold. I love that guy. He's great. And I found a guy who is part of a Miles Davis listserv that David Bowie subscribed to in the 90s for about 3 months. It is the only archive, to my knowledge, of David Bowie's own writing about music. And this guy saved all the posts. So we're trying to, and the listserv has been gone for years. There's not even an archive online anymore. Okay, the company who hosted it is still in business, but they don't even have an archive for it. They don't have anything archived before about 2001 or 2002. This is a copyright nightmare. Do we ask the Bowie estate? David Bowie never signed his post. He didn't post from even one of his own personal email addresses. He sent his writing to someone else who posted on his behalf and said he was doing that. All right, so this is like a crazy nightmare of a permissions thing, but that's what you have to think of when you're writing your proposal, because you're going to be responsible for that. We're trying to solve this, okay? Then a proposed timetable. They want to know when you're going to give them the complete book. When do you think it's going to be done? How much work has already been completed? Other critical dates? And any plans for updating the work after publication. They want your biography. Now, open access, all right, all legitimate academic publishers have open access options, okay? If you have an open access requirement, the publisher expects to get paid to publish your book. Palgrave Macmillan asked for about $3,000 to publish your book open access. The idea is not that the author pays for it, okay? There's usually, if you get grant money, if there's any grant money for anything left anymore. Back when we had the NEH, you could get grants for books, but the NEH grants would require you to publish your book open access. So part of the money they gave you was to fund that. Okay, this open access publishing with legitimate academic publishers is not vanity publishing. This is still peer reviewed. They can, even though you're paying them to publish it, they can still turn it down. And if it's not good enough, they will, because they still have their name on it. This isn't the same as some of these other publishers on there that are predatory and charging $1,000 to publish your 10-page article. Okay, those are predatory journals. Stay away from them. Legitimate journals like OUP and Palgrave publishers, like OUP and Palgrave Macmillan, they also have open access options, but they don't publish everything that they're paid to publish. It's still an OUP book, or it's still a Palgrave Macmillan book, or a Routledge book. Okay. Most publishers want to know if you're sending out simultaneous submissions. Some of them ask that you don't. I personally think that's ridiculous, because they're going to take 6 months to get back with you, and you're supposed to sit on your hands, and then maybe they never even tell you no. So go ahead and send it to 2 or 3 publishers at a time. If you get an acceptance and you like the contract and reviewing the contract, the next one, immediately contact the other publishers withdrawing your work from consideration. Okay. But don't be afraid to send it out to a couple of publishers at a time, 2 or 3. Okay. But most of them would like to know that ahead of time. I don't know how that may or may not affect your chances of getting published. It kind of just depends on the press, the acquisitions editors, and how much they really want your work, okay, once they review it. So if you go to the portal at Palgrave Macmillan, they've actually changed their process. The last time I submitted a book proposal to them, they had a long, unwieldy form, a Word document, and it basically required all the exact same information. Okay, but now they have an online form, and they don't require you, Palgrave Macmillan doesn't require you to identify the acquisitions editor. You fill out the form, tell them what your keywords for your book is and what your book is about, and they will match you with their acquisition editor. So they probably just got tired of everyone getting the wrong editor. But Palgrave Macmillan has kind of changed their process from a couple of years ago. Some publishers are going to ask for a marketing plan. Even academic publishers, they might want to know about your social media presence. They want to know if you have a Twitter account, or if you have an Instagram account, or TikTok, or X. No, I'm not going to say the word X. Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, or whatever. They want to know how you're going to promote your book. Okay. And part of that could be conference presentations. On a couple of occasions, like most recently last April in New Orleans, all of the 4 contributors to my book, plus me, got together and presented a conference panel on David Bowie, featuring material from our chapters. Okay. So that's a way of promoting the book. I took David Bowie and Romanticism with me. I took an order form with me. I passed it out to the audience members. I sat the book out there and showed it to them. And I expressed gratitude for all my contributors to that anthology, and to Sam, who, Gladden, who put together the conference panel. It was a popular cultural studies conference in New Orleans. Okay. So publishers want to know how you're going to support your book. Okay. At the least, be able to tell them you're going to present a paper at a conference, or you plan to present a paper at a conference, and promote your book there. Because they may get some, and the publisher will probably be at the conference for that matter. They'll have a book table, and your book might be on it if it has come out by the time the conference rolls around. So that's a way of you promoting the book that's already out there in the publisher's area of the conference. Okay. So once you've completed one book proposal, almost all of them require the same material, maybe in different order, but they're almost all of them asking for the exact same thing. Once you've done one, you can just copy and paste and adapt it for other publishers, because they all pretty much want to know the same thing. So from this point, we're down to about 10 minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and see if if anybody has any questions. Any questions? I don't know if anybody, I can't see the chat. Let's see here.
I can see the chat. I don't see anything in there.
Okay, good. All right. I just opened that up.
But perhaps people can also unmute if they do have questions.
Yeah,
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Diane.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for putting these together, Dr. Diane.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, JC. So any questions? So the previous session was researching a book, and that gives you the groundwork. That has you do the groundwork for writing the proposal, finding the publisher and writing the proposal. The next presentation will be on evaluating a contract. There are many different kinds of contracts in the academic book publishing world. Some of them almost guarantee you will never make a dime. So, but you don't generally publish academic books in most fields expecting to make a lot of money if they're like academic studies, because they usually sell less than 1,000 copies. In humanities, usually 300 to 500, just depends on your field. Textbooks are another matter, but academic studies, not so much. A former, at my grad school, there's a professor there in history that would do this lecture titled "How to Make $1 Million Publishing Your Academic Book." And basically, he said, you publish your book, you get a promotion, you get a raise, and over 20 years, you've made another $1 million. So that's more realistic. Okay. His advice for evaluating a contract is they give you a contract and you sign it. But I don't feel that way. Okay. I've been offered some contracts. It's like, no, I don't think so. No, I really don't. And I just moved on. I've turned down some publishers before. And some of them, it's a real trade-off. So I'm going to go into that in my next session. If no one has any questions, though, I think we can wrap it up. Do you think so, Dr. Diane?
Yeah, I think this was wonderful and informative, and yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Looks like Pat has her hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't have my hands up. That's
not
Dawn.
Pat, Dawn, yeah. You can go ahead and ask your question, Dawn.
Hi, I raised my hand by mistake.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I would have questions, but I was interrupted like 6 times during this session because I'm working in the library. And so is this recorded? Is your session recorded? Yes. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay.
All right, well, thank you for coming. It was great seeing you all here. I'm glad you showed up. And the session has been recorded, and hopefully that will be made available to everyone soon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity